Hi, friends. Welcome to Direct Impact Broadcasting. The network of growth and transformation presents SOS for Leaders, where your host, Tywauna Wilson, will be sharing leadership and personal growth strategies. Let's jump right in.
Welcome to SOS for Leaders. I am your leadership mentor and host, Tywauna Wilson. If this is your first time tuning into this podcast, thank you so much for landing on the show. I hope you are able to benefit from the practical, bite-sized leadership tidbits and personal growth strategies that I will share in this particular episode. If you are a returning guest, thank you so much for subscribing to the podcast and for continuing to listen episode after episode. Either way, if you could do me a favor and share this podcast out with your network and those you are connected with, because you never know who needs to hear this particular episode that we're talking about today. What we're going to talk about today, we are still in our series on imperfection. And today we're going to talk about those leadership traits that are rooted in imperfection. So, a great leader does everything perfectly, right? No, we all know that that's not true. We all know that that's not the case. Nothing could be further from the truth. After all, even the leader is still human. And for some reason or another, your teams are going to think as the leader that you have some super powers that they don't possess, even though you put your shoes on exactly the same way that they put their shoes on. This humanity means that you're just as prone to mistakes as anyone else on the planet. In truth, a leader is generally called on to make more decisions than those that work under them, right? That's just the nature of the beast. So it could be argued that they make more mistakes than anyone else. The law of averages being what it is called. When you are the leader of people, you have to make way more decisions, which means that all of those decisions are not going to be winners. You're going to make mistakes. The more decisions you make, the more mistakes you make. So what does this mean for you if you're hoping to be a good leader for your team, or if you're not already a leader for your team, or maybe you are a newer leader and you're trying to figure it out? You have that fear of being a failure and making mistakes, and it's going to come. You're going to make some mistakes, so get over the fear. But first, you need to understand that the best leaders really do embrace their imperfection. So think about these four kind of like traits of leaders in regards to imperfection. So inspiration. When those under you start seeing not just your accomplishments, but things you fought through to get to where you are today, they start seeing the possibilities for their own future. After all, if you could succeed despite your flaws and your mistakes, then why couldn't they? There's nothing quite so inspiring as seeing someone fight against adversity and win. People like to see where someone has slayed their giants, somebody has won. And as a leader, you're in an excellent position to teach these values from your own mistakes, being that inspiration. And I always tell people, especially, where I come from, I didn't always come from a home of educators and educated people that went off to school and I had all of this passed down to me. I didn't have that, and that's okay. But it's those things that made my journey what it is, that I'm able to talk with our youth leaders about, it doesn't matter how you start, but how you finish. So being that inspiration, because I had things that didn't always work out. I talk with my laboratorians about, in our industry, you have to be certified, or at least most places really desire and want, some require you to be certified. And I didn't pass my certification test on the first try or the second attempt. And so I shared that with people, that just because I didn't pass the test doesn't mean I can't pass the course. And so it's those things, especially when I have new grads that are out of school and they are panicking, and it doesn't mean if you don't pass, your first time that your life is over, that your life is in ruin. So there's something that can be gained from that inspiration, from that being imperfect, that makes you a great leader. Being approachable. There's nothing more intimidating than a leader who just kind of stands on a pedestal with their shoulders like flung back, like I'm all that, and kind of far away from your team. If you're seen as being perfect, those under you will be intimidated by your very presence. And that's not what you want as a leader. While this seems like it might be good, who doesn't love a little hero worship every now and again? You want to know that you're doing a good job, but this can be detrimental to your team. Your crew needs to know that they can come to you with questions or problems, and know that you're not going to judge them. That they want to know that they can approach you with, I made a mistake, I messed up. When you embrace your imperfection, you're going to find you're more relatable and easier to talk to. And this makes for better dialogue and more openness, especially when things might not be going well for some of your team members and they need your help to get back on track. And so knowing that you are approachable, like it's okay, to make a mistake, and know that you're not going to think I'm such a bad, terrible person, I'm such a failure, of being able to, not be an intimidating leader, not standing on your pedestal, because we've all made mistakes. And if you are one of the few people that have never made a mistake, it's coming. Trustworthiness, of having that, being able to be trusted. So when you are approachable, it does lead to trust very easily. They kind of go hand in hand. If your team feels like they can talk with you, chances are those same points of vulnerability coupled with some inspiration means they'll also feel like you're in a position to be able to help. Basically, your team will trust you more, which is crucial to success when it comes to building a solid team. If your team does not trust you, there's only so far you're going to be able to go. You gotta have trust, and your team has to be able to approach you. If not, they can't approach you, they won't trust you. And you're only going to be able to go so far. And you're going to be looking back, wondering like, why are we still in the same place that we were at last year? Why are these employee engagement results the same as when we took the employee survey last year? So having that ability to be able to trust. And the last thing that I'll cover on this particular show is around self-awareness. Imperfection really does benefit you in the long run. If you're able to see your flaws clearly without condemning, you can move into problem-solving mode. And here's where you put your best leadership skills to work, by building a team that complements your abilities. Also, this ability will help you see the imperfections of others, which leads you to a clear vision of just what your team needs. There's no need to keep on adding team members that all have the same qualities when you know that you lack a specific skill set. Now you can add team members who can make up in these areas, designing the best possible team for success. So if you think about, a CEO of a company, they typically bring their own cabinet of people or their own people for their leadership team. And why do they do that? Because they know there's certain areas in which they are very strong, and they know that there's areas in which they are not as strong. And so they are bringing those people that they can trust, who are approachable, and that they know will have those skills in which they lack. They are looking for people to help them be able to move their leadership lid up to the next level. But having that self-awareness and knowing Don't try to fake it that if you know you're not good with budgeting, then you know you need to get somebody on your team that's very good with numbers, is very good with budgeting, is very good with the financial acumen. And when you look around your team, and if you are familiar with DISC and the personality styles, if you know that everybody on your team is C-wired, that competent, into the details, want all the facts. If you know everybody is a C-wired style, you know you're going to need some other styles. You're going to need some Ds, some people that are direct, that are decision makers. You're going to need some people that are influencers, that are I-wired, that's fun to be around, and that's innovative and thinking outside the box. You're going to need those team players, that's S, and that's steady state people that are just good for the morale of the team. And if everybody around you on the team thinks and acts like you, it's going to be hard to be innovative and have that where your team is able to go to the next level. So leadership really is, there are some traits that's, rooted in imperfection, and it works. It is a good thing because nobody is perfect. I know when, as a leader of people, and I had it happen one time, one of my employees, because I was the manager, she was like, but you're just perfect. And I'm like, I am nowhere near perfect. I make mistakes daily. I don't get it right daily. And that's okay. And I said, I want you to know that it's okay to make mistakes. I would rather you keep trying and making decisions and make some mistakes along the way versus you being afraid to make a decision. And I think it was one of those things because the culture of that organization was more so of a directive culture, and the person that she reported to before, they just looked at that person as that person was perfect. They had all the knowledge and they didn't make any mistakes. And they really didn't know if the person made any mistakes or not. But that was the image that they had in their mind. And so I'm like, no, I am not. I tell people, listen, I'm not perfect. Don't put me in that box of thinking that I'm perfect. I'm not. Nobody is perfect. And so hopefully you have heard some things in today's podcast that stand out to you, especially as you are moving into leadership or you are already into leadership and you're trying to figure out in those areas in which you are, there's some imperfection and you're trying to figure out how to navigate and how to maneuver. Well, embrace them. It's part of the process and it's okay. So thank you for tuning in to this episode of SOS for Leaders. Please share this podcast out. Make sure you subscribe so that you can be aware of each and every new episode. Until the next episode, I hope you have an amazing day.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of SOS for Leaders, where Tywauna shared nuggets of wisdom that you can use to win in life. Follow her on Facebook, Instagram, and connect on LinkedIn. And remember, the secrets of success in your life resides inside of you. When you know what your strengths are, you can utilize them to live an impactful and